Ukraine's wartime protest. Democracy at work or Zelensky's terrible mistake. This is what we will talk about today. In this footage, Ukrainians are chanting power to millions, to million people, not to millionaires, and corruption kills. Peaceful protests have erupted in Ukraine during wartime, and Russian propaganda, some pro-Kremlin sources, and Russian shills are already twisting the truth. Here's what's actually happening. In this video, I'll break down for you what really triggered the protests, why Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies were targeted, how the Ukrainian government responded to public pressure. This footage is from Current Times, which is Radio Liberty. Despite war and political turmoil, Ukrainians took to the streets, not against their country or Zelensky, please keep that in mind. They came to the streets to defend democracy, transparency, and accountability. Please watch my video until the end, because I also introduced critical information from my investigation into Russian disinformation campaigns and TikTok weaponization. These topics are deeply connected. Russian propaganda and Russian propaganda shills, for example, Marjorie Traitor Green, are already trying to spin these protests into something they are not. Don't fall for it. In the final minutes of the video, I'll share how Russia creates and spreads false narratives, what Operation Doppelganger really is, and why TikTok is being used as a cyber weapon. If you care about truth in wartime, this video is for you. Stay until the end. What's happening online is as dangerous as what's happening on the battlefield. Hello, I'm Elena. Welcome back to my channel Enough of Propaganda. Please like, subscribe, share my videos. Let's make truth available for everyone. Before we get to our topic, I just want to express my condolences to people who were killed and died in Ukraine because of Russian attacks, for example, and to people who died in Russia because of Putin's war and negligence. And I'll say a couple words about it. This is very scary and very dangerous, very upsetting, disappointing, and I'm basically enraged. Russia, every night, every day, keep hitting civilians in Ukraine, every single day. For example, they just struck a tuberculosis hospital in Kharkiv, where my friends live in Kharkiv, with aerial bomb. It's not just an aerial bomb. I might make a special video about it, but this is kinda, Russia is testing new weapons on Ukraine, on Ukrainian civilians. This is deliberate attack with a bomb which they shot from the plane 100 kilometers away. And 42 people were injured. It depends on time. This post was about saying about 12 people were injured, including 12-year-old girl. One fatality was reported, yet to be continued. And all these horrors is just awful to see. Late developments showed that 42 people were injured and 2 newborn babies were among those injured after Russia hit a residential building. And as often, after Russian forces attacked Kharkiv and nearby areas with missiles, drones and guided bombs, damaging homes and sparkling fires, a second strike hit as rescuers responded, injured at least 3. So Russia often do that so-called double tap, and they continue to do so, and the international community, the whole world, basically too busy watching what Ukraine is doing wrong, instead of watching what Russia is doing wrong. This is war crimes. This is Kamianske, Dnipropetrovskaya region, Ukraine. The shopping center was hit by Russia, deliberately. It's called Epicenter. In Russian city Saratov, which was not too far from Volgograd, where I used to live, on the Volga River, part of building collapse after gas leak explosion. This is not Ukraine, this is not war in the direct kind of part of war. It wasn't hit by anything. Ukraine doesn't hit Russian civilians. This is Putin spending money on the war in Ukraine, choosing every day continue killing Ukrainians. Meanwhile, Russian economy deteriorating, Russian buildings deteriorating. There is nobody to fix these buildings. fix the gas leak, Russians blaming the governor and so on. But what he can do? People who are supposed to fix it either run away because of they are afraid to be drafted to the war, or got drafted to the war, get killed there, or at the war right now. And meanwhile, Russians are beating up and kicking out migrants out of the country. So there is nobody to work there. And there is no money to pay them because all the money are going to war. This is what happened. And as far as I know, a child died because of the debris fall on him. On top of it, Russian plane crashes in Russia Far East, and about 49 or 48 people on board dead. 42 passengers, including 5 children, according to Reuters. This was An-24 passenger plane, and it was crashed in the places where I used to live in the past, nearby, like Tinda and so on. Not exactly Tinda, but nearby anyways. So I was telling you long ago in my videos that Russia is cannibalizing now planes because of the war. They can't fix planes and so on. And now innocent people were flying. I saw the moment of that crash. I saw the video of it. Somebody filmed it. That was a terrible thing to see. And terrible thing to see attacks on Ukrainians every single day. So my condolences to people who lost their loved ones. Very bitter thing to say right now is that Russian people, obviously, by the looks of it, still don't connecting the war in Ukraine and all of these tragedies which is happening to their loved ones. Despite, I am not even talking about Russian losses, which is over basically 1,040,000 people already. 46, 50 almost. This is insane. And this is Putin's war. This is what brought to Ukraine Putin's war, and this is what it brought to Russia. Now let's get to our topic. Recently protests broke out in Ukraine. What some pro-Kremlin sources, Russian shills, are now falsely portraying as Ukrainians turning against Zelensky or even pro-Russian uprising. This is complete nonsense. Here's what's actually happening. I'll just show you some footage of current time. This is their correspondent Alexei Prodayvoda. What I like about current time is that they're really great news, and they actually have their correspondents in the places and so on. So let's talk about these protests. Ukraine is experiencing one of its largest wartime protests, with even Kyiv's mayor participating. The protest was sparked by a controversial new law passed by Ukrainian parliament, the Verkhovna Rada. By majority, Ukrainian parliament passed this law. So before even Zelensky signed it, Ukrainian parliament passed this law that limits the independence of two key anti-corruption agencies. One called NABU, National Anti-Corruption Bureau, and the next one called SAP, Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office. The law placed both bodies under the control of the Prosecutor General, raising legitimate concerns about potential government overreach. Despite these concerns, a majority of members of parliament supported the law, and President Zelensky signed it. After Verkhovna Rada passed the law, Ukrainian parliament passed the law, Ukrainians came to the streets because they want corruption to stop. They want Ukraine continue fighting corruption, and they didn't want Zelensky sign that law, but he signed it. Critics argued that it risks undermining Ukraine's hard-won progress in the fight against corruption, while supporters claimed that it was a necessary step to reform an imperfect system. What I find out after listening to both sides, that Ukrainians really want to fight corruption. This is true. And Ukrainian government, President Zelensky really want to fight corruption. This is as well true. The problem was it sounded like that those bodies wasn't reporting to anyone, not to the prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor actually appointed by President Zelensky in this case. That is why people were so concerned that it will be hard to fight corruption and so on if those bodies would be responded to the prosecutor and Zelensky has influence on the prosecutor. They think they might have an influence. So people took to the streets to complain and protest. The Ukrainian government claims that one of the reasons why this law was necessary, it was because some people from those bodies, NABU and SAP, were working for Russia. This is actually arrest of some of them. This has all happened while Ukraine Security Services, SBU, launched an internal investigation into corruption and espionage within NABU. Ruslan Magomed Rasulov, the head of NABU detective unit for Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhia, this guy is Fedor Khristenko, and so on. Rasulov was detained for allegedly leaking classified information to Russian intelligence, FSB, and helping his father, a Russian citizen, trade with Russia and sending industrial hemp, for example. These are other people who were involved. And another person who was arrested, this one, was accused of being a full-blown FSB mole inside NABU's central office, leaking sensitive data and conducting illegal background checks. According to Ukrainian media, this refers to Viktor Gusarov, a member of NABU's elite and secretive unit. Investigators claim to have documented over 60 instances in which Gusarov shared restricted information with some man called with the surname Ivantsov, a Russian FSB operative. Meanwhile, prominent voices in Ukraine, including opposition MPs and civil activists, argue that these cases are being used to pressure independent anti-corruption institutions and weaken their autonomy. So this is why the protests erupted, to defend transparency and accountability, not to support Russia or to oppose Ukraine's survival as a sovereign nation. And it wasn't against Zelensky, it wasn't about joining Russia or stopping the war or anything like that. This is Mikhail Podolyak from the president's office, for example. He was saying about accountability of those institutions. According to Alexei Goncharenko, one of the opposition politicians, he is not pro-Zelensky, but he also was saying that basically they were really unhappy that this law was passed so quickly. They were not prepared or informed that this is what's gonna happen, and then it happened really, really quickly. Despite that, he's saying that there is war going on, so we supporting our president and we supporting our country, but we're not happy that it kind of was shoved down our throat. This is not democratic way to go about it. Interesting to see an opinion of independent journalist, young man, Karlan Robertson. I hope I pronounced his name right. He actually personally met President Zelensky several times and so on. And he is really have interesting insight on the matter. I recommend in his video. So what happened to Ukrainians? I would underline that this is very important. The protests were peaceful, open, and not suppressed. That alone is a powerful reminder, even during war, Ukraine still allows dissent and protests, something that has not existed in Russia for many years, if ever. This is what President Zelensky said right away, that he submitted a bill to lock out Russian interference in justice, law enforcement, and anti-corruption agencies, and so on. So what happened in the end? This is the article from The Insider. Zelensky returns independence to anti-corruption agencies after large-scale protests in Ukraine. What can we see from it? As a result of the protests, the Ukrainian people made their voices heard, and President Zelensky responded. He proposed a new law that overturned key parts of the previous one. The updated legislation was developed with input from representatives of NABU and SAP. So these men are representatives of NABU and SAP, and they said that they literally were helping to develop this new law. Their voices were heard, and they were included. So Zelensky met with them, and that's under the new law. Both bodies will not be placed under the control of Prosecutor General, and their independence will be protected. Several Ukrainian politicians apologized for the lack of communication and the rushed nature of earlier law. So Ukraine is not Russia. The Ukrainian people demanded that their government listen to them, and it worked. This is post from Zelensky himself on his speech. You're welcome to watch it. This is post from Maria Avdieva. She is saying that Parliament still has to vote Thursday on a new law restoring anti-corruption independence. But the bigger lesson is clear. In Ukraine, no one can afford to ignore the people. We fought hard to earn this. It's our greatest strength, and it can never be taken away. Some protests still continued by the looks of it on Friday, or maybe just an article from Friday. This happened in several different cities, so Ukrainians are not slaves. This is what democracy looks like in wartime. It's messy, it's hard, but it's real and it works. Disclaimer: I'm not an expert on Ukrainian politics, but have been researching the war in Ukraine and Russian propaganda for over 11 years. I want to share verified information that is important for Ukrainians and for anyone following this war. Russian propaganda is now working overtime to twist this into a fake story of Ukrainians rising against their government. This is classic Kremlin operation. In this my video, this is one big video I made out of it, another couple smaller ones. It's called Massive Kremlin Disinformation Campaign to Undermine Zelensky Exposed. I broke down how this propaganda is created, who is behind it, and how it spreads, especially on platforms like TikTok. This is one of the shorter videos. I included key materials like a brief excerpt from the lecture by Russian senator Rogozin titled Fundamentals of Psychological Warfare in the Media of Opposing Sides During War, delivered at МГИМО, Russia's top school for training future propagandists disguised as diplomats, journalists, and lawyers. Proof of Russia's long-term strategy to manipulate Ukrainians via covert operations and programs like Operation Doppelganger. Operation Doppelganger was about Russia creating some fake accounts, fake media which look like real ones, fake pages which look like, for example, Deutsche Welle or something like that, which is turned out to be completely made up. I showed in my video exactly how this propaganda was made, from which channels it was spread, and so on. And this is an evidence that Russian agencies actively monitor the results of their propaganda in Ukrainian social media, measuring how successful their psychological operations are in pushing Ukrainians towards fear, division, and mistrust. Another chapter of this video consists proof that TikTok is being used as cyber weapon by the Chinese Communist Party. Bottom line, don't let Russian propaganda fool you. Even in the middle of brutal war, Ukraine has more democracy and freedom than Russia had before the war began. If you want to protest, do it. That's your right. Just make sure you verify the facts first. Please don't let your news from Russian propaganda, TikTok, a CCP cyber weapon, or influencers who are already been caught spreading lies. What will happen in Ukraine remains to be seen, but understanding how this information war works is essential, because it's being used on you every single day, whether you notice it or not. In the end of this video, I want to show you the next fundraiser by Broe, amazing YouTuber, an American, who single-handedly helped Ukraine a lot. One regular American, former military, just by himself created himself YouTube channel. Now it's something like 626,000 subscribers. He created 4 campaigns, and this is the 5th one, and I actually participated in all of them. And with help NAFO 69 Brigade, they collected $4,813,000 in those previous campaigns. And this is the latest update, $786,277.31. In a few days, a regular American, he didn't wait until his government do something. This is what he does, and NAFO is a Estonian company. So in the video of Broe, I'll give a link, and I give a link to this fundraiser. You're welcome to see how it all works, where the money goes, and what Ukraine receives for this. They receive trucks, they receive drones, and there are plenty of reports how they received it, and excuse me, many trucks, 61 trucks were already in Ukraine from the previous campaigns when this one is started or something like that. So you're welcome to join it. Even $5 to $10 donation helps, but if you can help, you're still a part of the community, and Jake is right. You can help by clicking, liking, and sharing the information about it, or just about videos Jake Broe is making. They are amazing and straight to the point. They really help in Ukraine, and he is telling the truth. Ukraine need help. Every day, Russia is hitting Ukrainian civilians. This is drone just flew in the civilian apartment building. This is how it looks now. Please help Ukraine. Stay smart, stay free, learn the truth, and stay informed. This is Ukrainian came back from the battlefield to propose to his beautiful bride. Let's save these people. Let's help them. Thank you for watching. See you later.